Hi class, I'm going to go over the Toulmin method of argumentation for your next essay. And I actually want to look inside your book and everything's an argument. So the Toulmin method is explained in chapter 7, part 2 of your book, chapter 7, where it says structuring arguments. And you're going to click on Toulmin method of argumentation. It's on page 153. So the Toulmin method is started by a philosopher named Stephen Toulmin, who figured out a way of structuring arguments. And it will help you structure your argument in the way that it's more logically formatted and that it's easier to explain what you want to say. So it starts with the claim, the argument you wish to prove. That's a claim. The qualifiers are any limits you place on your claim. So if you have any limits that you only want a limit could be like focusing a certain point. A limit could be things that you just don't want to bring into the argument. A limit could be just narrowing down your ideas. So that's what a qualifier is. So it makes reasoning and arguing much more to the point. So the reasons is, of course, the support for your claim. So Toulmin wanted to really condense ideas so that it just sticks to the point and not gets away from the point. Warrants are underlining assumptions that support your claim. So we all have some assumptions that support our claim. We make a lot of underlining assumptions based on societal constraints or our own constraints. Backing is evidence. That's all your research that you do. So if you wanted to state the relationship among them in sentence, you might say this. So here, my claim is true to a qualified degree because of the following reasons, which makes sense if you consider the warrant backed by these reasons. These terms, claims, evidence, warrants, backing, and qualifiers, are the building blocks of the Toulmin structure. So let's look at them one at a time. So Toulmin arguments begin with claims, debatable and controversial statements of assertions you hope to prove. So debatable means that it has more than one side. A controversial issue could be something that's talked about by a lot of people, and maybe there's some taboos associated with it. A claim answers the question, so what's your point, and where do you stand on that? Some writers might like to ignore these questions and avoid stating a position, but when you make a claim worth writing about, then it's worth standing up and owning it. So there's a danger in you might oversimplify an issue by making it too bold of a claim. Of course, by making the sweeping claim is a logical first step towards eventually saying something more reasonable and subtle. So here are some fairly simple, undeveloped claims. Congress should enact legislation that establishes a path for citizenship for undocumented immigrants. It's time to treat the opioid addiction in the United States as a medical crisis. NASA should affirm its commitment to a human expedition to Mars. Veganism is the most responsible choice of diet. Military insurance should not cover the cost of sex reassignment surgery for servicemen and women. So these claims are really outrageous, and because they're too much to the extreme. So if you're writing an argument, the whole idea, you want a debatable argument, you want to talk about something controversial, but you also want to be able to convince the other side. So if your claim is too much, if it's too assertive and it goes too far to the extreme of what you want to say, you're going to lose your readers, and that's a really important thing. So you want to make a good claim that would get people interested in what you have to say, because when you're making an argument, the whole idea of creating an argument is to get people to see your point of view, especially people who don't have your point of view to see your point of view. So you need to offer evidence and good reasons. So here's some places where you can get evidence and good reasons. It could be personal experience, anecdotes, facts, and authorities. If you had a balance of all of these things, that would make your paper really strong because it would relate to your reading and your audience. So I want to move down here. You can read all of this by yourself, but I want to move over towards the end of this where you see that there's an outline of the Toulmin argument. So the federal government should ban e-cigarettes. The ban would be limited to public access. So when they're talking about the ban of e-cigarettes, they're not saying that you should stop using them altogether, but limiting them to public access. So that's a qualifier. So here we're just talking about banning them in public access. That doesn't mean that people can't have them in their own private use. E-cigarettes have not been proven to be harmless. E-cigarettes legitimize smoking and are also aimed at recruiting teens and children with flavors like bubblegum and cotton candy. So those are some reasons. The Constitution promises to promote the general welfare. That's a warrant. Citizens are entitled to protection from harmful actions by others. So if we look back at the claim, and it says the federal government should ban e-cigarettes, and then we look at the qualifier in public spaces. So we're only talking about banning e-cigarettes in public spaces here. So we're not talking about it in private areas. So all of these reasons and warrants would actually support the public access that we're talking about and not private. And we're not trying to infringe on other people's privacy or other people's rights, but we're only talking about public access where a large group of people would be affected. And that's a huge difference. And that's the beauty of the Toulmin method that has the qualifier, because it talks about something specific of where the ban should be. And it would attract a lot of people, even e-cigarette users, who would say, well, if I can have it at my house, then it's fine if you want to ban it in public places. That's the mindset. So the backing would be is that the United States is based on a political system that is supposed to serve the basic needs of its people, including their health. So going back to public access, this is public access to people in a large scale, not private. Okay, so that's a really important thing. So here's evidence analysis of advertising campaigns that reveal direct appeals to children. So you would have to find that actually. Lawsuits recently won against e-cigarette companies, citing the link between e-cigarettes and return to regular smoking. Examples of bans on e-cigarettes already imposed in public places. So this evidence you would have to support with research. The authority is cite the FDA and medical groups on effect of e-cigarette smoking. So that's another citation that you would need, the authority. Conditions of rebuttal. E-cigarette smokers have rights too. This is where I'm getting back to the public spaces, because if you qualify it just to public spaces, limited to that, they have rights in their own privacy. Smoking laws should be left to the states. That's another rebuttal, because some states might want to limit their smoking laws differently, and such a ban could not be enforced. If you wanted to enforce people completely not using e-cigarettes, you can't do that. If somebody wants to smoke an e-cigarette in his or her car, he or she can. The ban applies to public places. Smokers can smoke in private. So that's some responses to the rebuttals. That's why you want to qualify your argument so that it creates something that's doable for all of us. And that's the Toulmin method, is that when you write an argument, you don't want it just to be about you. You want it to be about us as a group of people and as a society. So that's the Toulmin method, and that's the method you're going to use. This is just an example on e-cigarettes, but there are other examples. So that you could use. You could make an outline for any argument you want to pose. So this is just on e-cigarettes, but this method could be used for any topic. Anyways, that's the Toulmin method, and I have some videos that go along with this too to help you. I really suggest that before you write your essay that you create some sort of outline like this, and that you use the outline to help you write your paper. Okay, bye-bye.